Today, we're going to talk about something that one of you asked recently. You know, you sent in some questions, and it's always appreciated, but somebody asked me if I could address this a little bit more. So it seems a good opportunity, a good time for that. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off with this. This is sort of focusing on what's happening. You know, 2018's been really noteworthy as a period of change. Not just change like wonderful, expansiveness, but really it's been a time so far for a lot of people of change. Loss has been a part of it for some, but really there's lots and lots of layers to this. So I'm going to explain that and see, if we can kind of look at that from a multi-dimensional standpoint, multi-layered standpoint. So for starters, if you would, if I may, the person's asking to talk about events to come, especially in the next couple of years. They try their best not to get caught up in all the stuff that goes on around, the theories and whatever, but seems to not be able to escape it, especially as a mother, wanting to prepare children. So let me address a little bit at a time, but this is for everybody, not just this person's questions. I'm addressing this because it is for everybody. There is a lot going on, and we really need to listen and work with this. There's a lot going on. No, the world isn't ending in the next 24 months, but it'll probably feel like you wish it were, because globally we're going through almost a semi-version of a dark night of the soul. We each go through the dark night of the soul a couple times per lifetime. Some of us it lasts longer, some of it's more intense than others, but we all go through a dark night of the soul, but we also do things collectively. Let's remember that. We also do things collectively. Now, sometimes we know that, like we could say, well, collectively, it's warm out, in the southwest or the northeast or wherever you happen to be. You could say it's warm, so that region is collectively experiencing warmth or lower temperatures or humidity or whatever, it happens to be. I don't mean like just globally in that sense. I mean collectively as in unconsciously, and that's when it really gets scary, because then people are starting to feel this like wave of something happening and not knowing why or how or whatever. The world isn't ending, but it'll feel like, some people are going to wish that it were, because there's so many bizarre things happening. Next, and I'm going to progress and come back to all this in a moment, but been getting an inner knowing that it's time to leave. This person was living in Florida and feeling the call to move to Asheville. A lot of people have been feeling that for about 20 years, if I recall. A call to move to somewhere else. Yes, definitely. Florida has its beauty and its perks, and all that for so many reasons, but it's not a place that I would live long term if I were you or myself, for that matter. If spirit calls you to be there, or if circumstances call you to be there, then be there. If you're happy being there, that's the most important reason to be there, or anywhere else that you all live. I don't care if it's Denmark, South Africa, Australia, wherever. It could be Montana. If you're happy living there, that's a good reason to stay. All right. So next. So this person is saying the second half of that one question was the call to move to Asheville. They're not asking so much, what do you think of Asheville, Michael? But I'm just verifying that a lot of people have felt the call to Asheville. If you're in that region, the Southeast, that's one of the better places I would consider. There's a couple of areas, but I would consider that one. If you can live in that region, it's one of the more favorable spots. But watch out, because when you guys, we got to all understand, when we go to a region, when we go to a location like a call, there's often an exodus of people, that go. And with the exodus of people comes, stuff, fads and hype and, misrepresentations of an area and all that. So there's, there can come to be ego and who controls a region and all that. I've been, touring for so long that I remember places that I went to on tour, and it was quite interesting to go to smaller towns, let's say like Asheville, but smaller towns, where there were only a couple of metaphysical centers. And if you didn't kiss their feet, like, may I speak in your town, your holiness, they would pull the plug on their support, and you'd just see the difference. People would be afraid to attend, It's an amazing, very sad thing, but it does exist. And I've dealt with that in a few different towns here and there. But just, be aware. if you go to live somewhere, just check it out and make sure, just because it's said to be a spiritual town, check it out and make sure you're not getting yourself into a town that's going to have a little too much, I call it spiritual arrogance or whatever. Just watch out for that, okay? In any case, I hear good things about that one. There's talk about a wave of energy making its way to the Earth. It's supposed to be part of an ascension process. Many say it'll happen any day now. What I have said in the past on that, this person is saying that ascension's a shift in consciousness. It absolutely is. You can't ascend, you can't shift or ascend in body or form or in any form, even financially, without a shift in consciousness. If you do, it's more like a momentary quick fix. It doesn't last. The durable comes from shifting consciousness. So real ascension has to involve shifting consciousness. Okay. So on that note, this person was saying, is there a wave of ascension coming? Well, there are people that kind of excite you. Let me say this. There are people that are on the internet that really haven't been on the road. They haven't toured a lot, even if they look like they tour sometimes. They haven't maybe put in 20 years or 40 years or whatever. They maybe haven't even written books and so on. They haven't worked with people for years. So there's the new age teachers out there are kind of internet teachers. They're not like really grounded in what they're doing. There's a fad of internet teachers. They could have 100,000 people watching a video, or they can have go and do an occasional lecture and have 1,000 people show up or whatever, because of the buzz, the fad of the internet making them into something, which is great because that's something that is a new thing. The internet, more and more. But it doesn't mean that it's got the substance, the depth. And so we have to be careful with that. So there are people that are hyping and making a buck on, saying any day now the ascension is coming. I'm grateful that I'm pretty accurate. Most people would know I'm pretty accurate when I tune into things. And I'm really grateful for that, because that just reminds me that when you put God first, you're going to get more and more clear answers. Even the prophets of Israel would sometimes stray into inaccuracies because they would get, they would lose humility. So just keep the humility and it'll help all of us. But no, the ascension's not going to be here in the next 2 days. You're not going to see people, airlifting, up into the heavens or whatever. And I hope I'm wrong. That would be great, man. That'd be, God, that'd be great. It's just not likely. So there are going to be people out there that probably are selling people on this. And then when it doesn't happen, most of the time they just change angles and start a new fad, So it's kind of a drag because people don't catch on and say, let's not go after things that are a little more almost like conspiracies. There's an ascension and nobody's going to tell you about it. There's been times people were saying, oh my God, there's a secret planet that's on its way to collide with Earth, and it was supposed to be here many years ago. There's times when, I remember a particular psychic magazine back in the 80s was predicting, maybe it was the early 90s, predicting that UFOs were now going to land on the White House lawn. It was going to happen any day now. I said, no, it is not going to happen. It did not happen, in case you don't realize that. It did not happen. But people like that, they're still out there somewhere teaching. And, it's the way it goes. It's just the way it goes. It hit and miss, whatever. But I'm partly just trying to point out that it's not that I'm saying nothing is going to happen. So I'm not the skeptic, as I may sound. I'm just saying I can tell which things are accurate and which things are not, almost all the time anyway. And, we're moving. You're asking here, a new Gaia, a new Earth, a rapture of sorts. And when the wave comes, there's supposed to be a focus on love and what you want to create on the new Earth. Again, be careful, because there's this hype out there. This whole, it's hard not to cuss. So let me be careful what I'm saying. There's this whole movement out there about manifestation processes, how to create your reality. There's videos, there's books, I always forget the name of those teachers and books, but you know who they are because they're pretty popular. Some of them are channels. Yeah, one of them just popped into my mind. But all of that stuff, I don't really go after that because what I'm about is God and the awakening of God within us, which is Christ consciousness. That's what I'm about. That doesn't mean I don't pay attention to anything else. I incorporate everything else, kind of like a master craftsman has a tool belt. They're just tools on the tool belt. The master craftsman is what I'm into. God, Christ within. The tools, sure, use them. They're cool. They're fine. Don't make a God out of the tools. That's all, That's all, So these things that are hyping coming ascensions, and watch out for this, and focus on what you want to create in your new reality, I mean, no offense, man, but it's just, focus, so here comes the ascension. So I'm going to sit there and close my eyes and go, I want this, so that I can place my order, so that poof, when it all explodes and expands into a new dimension, Michael will be able to have his little reality. Oh, bloody hell, man. That's just not the way this works. Anyway, we share consciousness, guys. We're not going to just find our own little petty heaven on the other side of the ascension. What's going to happen is there's a collective consciousness we share, and it has already determined much of what any next level is in our lives. I influence my life, you influence yours, but I also influence ours and you influence ours. So there's an I and there's a we. So, what we're going to experience anytime that there's a shift, and I don't just mean leaps into higher dimensions, even when they're subtle on the earth, could be the weather, could be a news headline. We're co-creating these things, and we co-create them first in our beliefs, not in our thoughts. First in our beliefs, then in our thoughts. Our thoughts start to intensify and shape them, but it all starts with our belief systems. So the teachers that some of you honor that say, focus on what you want in life and you'll always manifest a wonderful life. It's a funny thing because a lot of those teachers don't acknowledge Christ consciousness. They don't even talk about God. They just talk about you nurturing your own version of God, which means they have a limit to their consciousness. If they're high beings, why don't they recognize the limit to their consciousness? That's when you know that there's a humility still. When there's oh no, we're just an unlimited being, we're telling you limited things and you just don't catch on, that tells me that they're limited beings, so I don't really make too much of them. Acknowledge your limits. You can say, wow, I serve. That's great when masters and ascended masters and light workers and light beings, I love that, hearing that. When light beings say, we are here to serve the divine plan of awakening. We are here to serve God. We are here to serve the Master Christ and so on. I love that, man, because it means I can now listen to that teacher, that master, that ascended master, that channeling more so, because I know that they're playing a part and that they are not the end result. They're not the light at the end of the tunnel themselves. They're just messengers like you or me. So that's just a sort of an aside, little tirade. But this goes on to say, if I can share any insights they're asking, New Earth and all that. The most important thing, and this is even hard, I have to admit, I go through personal moments around this too, where there are times when we forget the value of not creating our own reality. Now, be honest. If I asked you, hey, how many of you all believe in creating your own reality? Almost every one of you would be tempted to raise your hand. But I'm going to say this. Better than creating your own reality is surrendering to the one that God has already left for us. Amen, right? But I still need to kind of, according to some of these channels, they're saying, well, you should still put your own 2 cents in there just in case God misses a thing or two. God may forget to have chocolate on the other side after all, it's just, it's a sad thing because people have forgotten what it means to trust in love, trust in the perfection of God. And we think, well, just in case, I probably need to put my extra oomph into it. If you're going to put your mind power into it, put your mind power into surrendering. Celebrate, actually just celebrate. Oh my God, I get to participate in this God experience, this love, and wow, get into that instead of I'm going to focus on I want this and I want this and I want this. It has its place, but its place is not the number one priority. That's where I'll leave that. It goes on to say there are multiple timelines and realities playing out at once, and for that reason, it's hard to predict the future. What I keep feeling is whatever future and timeline I focus on will be the one I experience. I'm doing my best to keep my thoughts and actions as high as possible. Great. But you should keep your thoughts and actions as high as possible anyway. Ascension or no ascension. Some of you might remember if you were watching Sunday, I think it was, last Sunday, the talk I did from Unity of Sedona, the Sunday service. There was a beautiful little prayer that had come to me that in a nutshell was sort of saying, dear God, and then it was saying, because I believe in you, I try to be a good person. Because I believe in you, I've tried to be make a difference for others. Because I believe in you, I've tried to be a light to the world. Because I believe in you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Good. And then it ends with, but what's interesting, God, is that if you don't exist, and I just did these things because I believed in you, technically, I became those things. I made myself a better person because I believed in you. And even if God doesn't exist, I still became all those new things for the sake of God. And essentially that would mean I became more like God just because I was behaving properly, meaning raising the bar on my thoughts, my words, my deeds. Zarathustra, Jesus, Buddha, all these great teachers in history said, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, man. It just means, be clear, man. Be clean, as best you can. Be true to yourself, your soul. If we all sat, it's not a time for talking about this, but if we all sat and took an inventory and looked at our lives, if an ascension's coming, and it's happening tonight at midnight, how many of us could honestly say we're going to catch that train, considering being swooped up into the highest levels of dimensionality, or any level that you could go to is going to be contingent on how clear you are, how clean you are, how you don't have guilts and shames, because those will weigh you down. See, understand this. We would already be floating to higher dimensions, up, if we didn't have too much weight holding us down. I'm talking about the weight of guilts, shames, regrets, that unholy trinity of the ego. And also the weights, of, there's things I still want to do, that kind of stuff. Just human ambitions, things I wanted to accomplish, and so on. All these various things get in our way. But then there's also other things that still have to do with guilts and shames and regrets, but they involve things like when you're not being honest about what your soul is feeling. For example, I'm in a relationship and my partner, there's just not really any love left. We haven't made love in years, or there's issues. We're only staying together because of financial fears, which is understandable. But what I'm saying is, any incongruence, any misalignment becomes weight to our soul and holds us down. So don't be expecting to ascend when you've got stuff like that. What I would do is work on my stuff, and then I am ascending even in my day-to-day process. I mean, honestly, that's how it works. So is there going to be a timeline split wherein one timeline is heading towards a new earth and other would be towards catastrophes? Yes, the answer is yes. There are different timelines, but different experiences. In other words, we can all be on the same earth, and believe it or not, this is without even talking about splitting into different dimensions. Even while in the same dimension on earth, we can have different realities. So someone on earth could experience and attract and experience catastrophes. That's called learning the hard way. Other times, there's going to be, feeling immune to it all, just feeling really clear. And how clear will you feel? Well, it'll depend on how clear, you're living. So that's why I said we got to get stuff kind of cleared out. Which brings us to the next point. We're going through, globally speaking, we're going through a period that'll actually last a few months, but it's Saturn retrograde. Now, some of you have heard of Mercury retrograde. And that could be a little odd. Mercury retrograde is like, wow, it's like you end up having to go over conversations. You end up having miscommunications. Things just seem to go weird when it comes to electronics and all that. You could say it's a wives' tale, but it isn't. It's kind of trippy. It does tend to happen in those ways. It's been, proven, although people will always dispute it. Full moons have their particular effect, and so on. Astrological alignments. And by the way, I was talking about moving to, somebody said Asheville, somebody else said out of this town and that town. Don't forget, you guys can order, my website has them, but other people have them as well, astrocartography charts, which you could call them astrology relocation charts. To where usually you're given like a few options. You can ask about 3 locations where you'd like to live. And so it's kind of amazing to think people don't know this, because instead of moving somewhere, check in and find out what that experience might be like. I'm not saying let the stars control your decision, but be informed. That's all. So we have them on my website, in my online store on michaelmirdad.com, but you could also check them out elsewhere. I would just say, be careful not to pay too much. I think we only charge like $20. So, be careful not to accidentally get out there and spend $299. Because they all will tell you relatively similar information. Pros and cons of this town, that town, and so on, okay? So we have Saturn retrograde, and this has been coming for a while. Now, I don't sit around and look at the charts and the stars, figuring out what's coming. I don't, because again, I feel blessed. I tend to feel what's happening before it happens. I tend to sense it, and or just my own guidance would be, I need to do this or that, and it certainly avoids the foreboding energy that some people deal with. But still, it's important to understand. I felt it coming, didn't know quite what it was, but I was saying quite a little ways back, like to friends, like, there's something coming. I can feel it. There's a change coming, and I was kind of, just feeling it, noticing it. And some of you might notice or remember, it was maybe a month ago I did a little talk like this about animals. Hey, has anybody noticed a lot of people's pets are dying? As well as, in the environment, there were a lot of stories, about this, but a lot of people's pets dying. Why is that? And I was saying there's a reason. It's because the animals represent the astral dimension, the astral world, which is also synonymous with the emotional realm. So the astral world basically reflects our collective emotions. If our collective emotions are toxic, we're toxifying the astral world, which is the realm that ghosts live in. People that first pass over, they go into the astral world first. But it's also the place of the planetary emotional body. So the planet's emotional body is the animal kingdom. So they're, although alive on Earth, they're picking up what's happening emotionally. And, I'm sorry to say, guys, but there's a lot of toxic emotions that have been going around this world, in this country, in this world for a while now. Really toxic stuff from the Middle East, really toxic stuff in the nations, toxic stuff about male, female, toxic stuff about abuses, hating this and hating that, and one gender beating over another, winning over another. It's, warring over genders, warring over candidates. Do what you want. But remember, we can all have different realities. So I can live in my own reality while on Earth in the same town as someone else and have a different experience. So I don't have that experience of all the fighting and hate and gender. It's ridiculous. But it is shocking to see that so many people buy into it, because they would be the first to tell you how much they love and care about animals, and yet they're allowing themselves to kill those animals through toxic emotions. That's called hypocrisy, but I won't go any further on that one. So where we were, I want to say this too, by the way. I honestly believe you'd be hard-pressed to find very many incidents historically in the past where we had such an obvious collective thing going on energetically. Not just a collective, rise in economy, drop in economy. I mean energetically. Please, the animals were one sign I hinted at some time ago, many weeks ago. But, and I hinted because I hesitate to say some of these things. If I'm too bold about it and say, hello, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. This is, the spiritual channel where we channel God, and we're going to tell you this and that, and here we go. I'm now sensing, hold on, the end of the world at 3 o'clock tomorrow. I don't want to come across like that, a soothsayer, a prophet of doomsday. I don't want to come across like that. It's not my thing. I don't like the fear-based stuff. Even though there's important things that have to be said, I'm not really the one that likes to play the games like that. And sometimes they are games. So we're experiencing a collective, and I've been hinting rather than being too blunt about it. And that's my thing. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bridge. I'm going to drop hints. I'm not usually just going to say something too bluntly, especially if it may upset people. I may say something bluntly that upsets some people, but when it's just going to really cause more harm than good by scaring people, that's not going to be my thing. So I'm a little bit more cautious that way, but I am pointing things out, guys, and saying, please try to hear me on this note. Please try to hear what your own soul is telling you. All these animals dying, all this stuff in the world, and people aren't even putting it together. We're sharing almost like no other time that I can recall. We're sharing this collective experience, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more. As we get more and more into three-dimensional bodies, here's what's happening. We have three-dimensional bodies, but we're having upgrades. Like your phone gets an upgrade, 2.1, 2.8. You can buy, Office, whatever it is now, who knows, Office 25, and then 25.3. It's like that. Believe it or not, our three-dimensional bodies have upgrades. Some of us are still 3.1s, and we may have been incarnating, for thousands of years, and we're still like, duh, 3.1. The chant of a 3.1er is duh. And I don't mean duh like low intelligence. I mean spiritual, lack of spiritual intelligence. A belief that there's nothing but this. A belief that, you just live and die and that's it. Not being kind to people, it doesn't matter. Nothing really matters. Just survival of the fittest is 3.0, 3.1, even maybe like 3.2 to a degree. 3.3, somebody's shifting something. They're starting to think. And a lot of humanity is in that ballpark. 3.3, 3.4, 3.5. A lot of humanity is still in that range. But some people are going 3.6. And let's remember, 3.10 is 4.0. And that means the fourth dimension. So the reason I'm pointing that out is because as we move up, when we got past 3.5, any of us, it means we're starting to ascend. We're getting out of the lower half and we're starting to ascend, meaning we're moving in the upper half of this level of consciousness. Still 3D though. So we're human beings, but some of us are like 3.9. You can say that, and don't start jumping to that's only the empaths, kind of thing. Be careful with that. Don't jump to those kinds of conclusions. The highest, the 3-point-somethings, the highest 3-point-somethings are people not that just, wear spiritual colors, and wear pyramid hats, around the world, because they're just so spiritual. I'm making jokes about that, but it's not people that just like, look at me, how spiritual I am. It's really people that practice love and forgiveness. And because they practice love and forgiveness, they're as kind as they can be. I mean, they care, they help. You start becoming a light worker once you reach like a 3.7. You're now, you might have had some curiosity you know, light curious, 3.6. But 3.7, man, you're kind of there. You're kind of becoming a light worker. And you can't call yourself a light worker if you don't use God in your references, if you don't use God in your thoughts. And there are people that go, oh, I'm a light worker, but the God thing, no. And some of those channels that some of you follow, they do a little poo-poo on the, brushing off the God part. You don't brush off the God part and survive at higher levels. It just confirms you're still down there somewhere. You might be a 3.6. That's pretty cool. Good for you. As a channel, you're supposed to be a bit higher because you're supposed to be a cosmic being. So I think it's kind of sad when you have less brains than a mediocre human, but it's just me. Okay, so that's just my thoughts. I'm looking for love. I'm looking for the presence of God, the presence of love, forgiveness. I want evidence of that. I don't want you to tell me you're spiritual. I want the evidence, which means, are you kind? You say you're spiritual. Do you still gossip? You say you're spiritual. Do you still, jab and have your hatreds? Got to watch that. And this is all part of what's happening right now. So Saturn return means it's kind of like, or Saturn retrograde is like the deepest, darkest stuff that goes on for people has to be brought up. But what's tripping me out about this is that it's happening where I'm experiencing it, let's say, on one level, but there's other people at other, almost like they're in other dimensions at the same time dealing with that their way. So I'm going to elaborate on that in a sec, but it's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary how this works. All right. So just to make sure I've answered all this person's questions, let's see. They were asking about a little bit about the future, so I'll talk about that in a second. I want to remind everybody, as I titled in one of my books, you're not going crazy, you're just waking up. So if you're going through this kind of a thing that's happening planetarily, if you're feeling it, I'm going to describe it a little more in a moment, but if you're feeling this, you're not going crazy, you're just waking up. Something is happening. Now, don't just jump to, we're ascending and it's going to happen at noon tomorrow. No. Before you can ascend, you have to have a house cleaning. And Saturn is the planet for house cleaning more than any other, man. It's going to help us look at these things and process these things, and so on. It's really to help us see the things unhealed, the stuff that's kind of not just the muck at the bottom of it all, the bottom of the barrel, so to speak. It's the stuff hidden in the muck. And so it's like, let's clean this barrel out. Let's clean this self, this being that I am. Let's clean it out. I can't just look and say, look at the nice fresh water at the top and not want to deal with the lower stuff. It's a part of our life. We have to. We will rise as well as we fall. We can only rise as thoroughly as we are willing to fall or go into our inner self and process stuff. So that pretty soon you go to rise to the next level and there's nothing holding you back. No shame, no guilt, no regrets. Communicate, talk out the stuff. Now's the time. Get to your counselors and so on. Now's the time. Talk about this stuff. If I could grant a wish, if I could just snap my fingers and make something happen, I would probably say I would love to see more of us relying on each other as support systems through these things, because I'm hearing a lot of people, this one's sick, they don't go to a doctor. This one's in pain, they don't go to a massage therapist or chiropractor. People are almost like, it's like absurd that they're, no, I'm just going to stay suffering. It's like, wow. And that's the way their Saturn return is, the retrograde is treating them. Something's dragging them in and beating them up, and they're feeling such a hopelessness that they're not reaching out for help. So one of the things that's happening, though, is because it's cleaning things out at such a deep subconscious level, it seems abstract and surreal. I described this last Sunday at our talk, but I said, it's so bizarre because I'm feeling like I'm standing there trying to talk, like maybe to you guys, but I'm standing trying to talk or relate in any way. And it's almost like it feels like I'm already, and I'm not trying to brag, this is just the way it happened for me. It feels like I'm in another dimension trying to talk to people in this 3D world and they can't even hear me. So that's a really a profound thing for any of us. That means that you're trying to communicate. Your animals are passing over to this other dimension, like where I feel I'm at sometimes, where I'm like the animals in this higher region, this higher realm, going, hey, I'm trying to give you a message. The animals are saying, we're trying to give you a message. Why aren't you guys getting this? Oh, we'll just take some more animals out and see if you get the message then. So it's really strange that people don't get it, but it is part of the process of what we're going through to feel the very thing I'm just saying is so frustrating, which is that too is a deep, dark thing. The frustration of not being able to communicate. The whole belief that I need to sit in my house and be in pain and not getting taken care of. That's one of the darknesses that's being exposed here. So, and if you didn't know it was being exposed, you do now. Okay? So, let's see. Yes, it is a period that we're being drawn within. We clearly are being drawn within. And that means, it's to uproot the darkest experiences, darkest issues, darkest patterns, even addictions. This is important. This period of Saturn going retrograde is also, because it's been a really heavy one, and it's hitting us more on a collective level than I've ever seen. So it's hitting us really deep into addictions. So be careful. I'm saying that it may literally drag you into a little more temptation to do some of the things you do habitually or addictively. But if not literally doing that, it might draw you into the emotions or issues that caused you to have addictions at some time in your past. What are you supposed to do with that, do you think? Get back into your addictions? No. I got to look at the stuff that's coming up and process it. I can't say that's easy for everybody, but again, I'm going to emphasize, but bloody hell, man, if we could do it together, if we could just, step up and work this together, we have a better chance of success. Try this alone, and I think we're only asking for trouble. This is a great opportunity. I mean, there's no opportunity better than this to do our inner work. Now is a great time to do our inner work. When Saturn, which is where we get the word Satan from, Saturn and Satan, what do they say the devil does? Tempts you. So Saturn is going to tempt us. It looks like it's not a Satan tempting you to go to addictions. You could say that if you want to say that, but it's actually Saturn revealing temptations that you have towards your addictions. It's seen from a different place. It doesn't matter to me which one you focus on, because they're both going to get you to the same place. That is what? Step up, fight it, man. And not resist it, fight it. I mean, fight it by looking at it. Go within. Have a little bit of a holy war, so to speak, where you go inside and look at the ego self. To be able to peel off the layers of ego. What is this? What's happening? And the world that we're used to is not going to support us. It's not going to get us out of this. We're in this, and it's going to last quite a while, several weeks. So, step up, man. Great time to do inner work because, Saturn is related to Hades. That's in the Greek mythology, Saturn, Satan, Hades. That's the underworld. And the underworld was not really shamed as much in the Greek mythologies as it is in theology and biblical doctrine and all that. It wasn't presented the same way. It had more of a mystical multidimensionality to it. So it was more like symbolic of. And so Hades is a part of ourselves. So you don't want to go inside. Then you're going to have a hard time dealing with Saturn being, retrograde, because it's the whole point is it's trying to get us to look at things we don't want to look at. So, be careful during this time. Watch the addictions. Like I said, I hesitate to talk about these things sometimes because they sound so big and scary to some people. But this is where we're at. I'm needing to share a little bit more on it than maybe I would have thought several weeks ago when it started. So the next piece I want to share about this is that it's not easy to explain, but we think we have a nervous system in this body. we don't realize the esoteric version of our bodies and nervous system and our energy systems. So we don't just have a nervous system that's communicating through chemistry, things that are going on in the biology of this person. The nervous system, which science doesn't understand yet, and medical science doesn't understand, a little more success in the psychoneuroimmunology, field, but it's still just so limited because they're coming from such a dense or linear place. Here, and you can't understand multidimensional things from a linear place. So what's happening is our nervous system isn't just something that goes in our biology and communicates information, and our anatomy and communicates information. What's also happening is the nervous system is also like antenna to the outer world, not just to the sensors of the nervous system, sensors that are like on the skin. I'm talking about it has this antenna. It is an antenna, the nervous system. Not just working inside, but it's working externally, saying we are here tuning into higher dimensions. So what's going to happen is our chakras and our energy systems are communicating higher dimensionalities into our dense realities. But then the nervous system is also participating in that. The nervous system is helping to take information from those higher energy systems of ours, like meridians and chakras and all that. And it's trying to translate that to the body. That is not working really well right now. People have nervous systems. We all have nervous systems. We're all sensitive with antenna. Some people are having psychological breakdowns right now. I mean, I've seen it with a couple of students, a couple of clients that where they might be just a little off psychologically, they're spinning really out of control. Just whatever's going on in them and projecting and just really kind of getting off. That's the term is like they're just off. They're off center or, whatever you want to call it. And the problem is the world's going to tell them to medicate their ego, or they might have resistance to say, I'm not going to medicate and get themselves in worse trouble. Or the world's going to say, just medicate till you don't feel anything. That's not going to help. So again, we're in a situation that nobody knows how to deal with. This nervous system is an antenna, but it's currently, there are things going on in higher dimensions, and the nervous system is trying to explain that to the body. Hey, listen, there's new waves of energy coming in. You need to adapt because you're going to go from 3.6 today or this week or this year. You're kind of shifting up to 3.7 towards a greater and a greater dimensionality. Are you ready? And we're like, what? Our body, our organs, because they have cellular memory, and they're like, wait a minute. We're still used to 3.3 or whatever it was. And it's going, what do you mean there's going to be some changes? Yeah, just hang on. And then here it comes. So, the nerves are getting deluged. So people are having anxieties. They're having multidimensional experiences. Some people are going, well, here comes a shift in 2012. And they go, oh, well, it didn't happen. So they don't believe in any of these shifts that we're talking about now. 2012 did happen, and it takes period of time. For the next 20 years, we're going to be dealing with the shift predicted at 2012. That was not bogus. It's real. What's bogus is how quick people are to toss out something because it doesn't fit their own little egos, minds, timelines, and whatever. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people who the nervous systems are affecting their, when I said chakras, we take and we translate from spirit or from the higher dimensions through our chakras and our energy systems like meridians. But then it translates to our nervous system and our endocrine glands. And so people are having all kinds of problems, especially with the thyroid, the Christ center. Why? Because we're birthing the Christ consciousness now, finally. And we're entering this Aquarian age and birthing the Christ consciousness for humanity. So it could look like this, just here we go, guys, ready, open. No, not us, not humans. This thing's trying to open and people are going, okay, I'm feeling something. You know what I'm feeling? I don't like this person in office, and I don't like that person and I don't like this, and I'm going to fight about this, and I don't like, and they just hate so much. And then look what happens. The hate is going to attempt to toxify your systems. Your glands now then are going to be toxic, not just from what you're picking up now, but all the toxins from any time, in any lifetime that's been stored in your consciousness. So our consciousness, collectively speaking, mine and our consciousness related to Christ awakening is going to store a lot in this gland no matter what. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person, that there's a gland issue, but, we have to look at the stuff. So the Christ center, the thyroid, is the thing that's most baffling people because it's the Christ center awakening. So in the book of Revelation, when you hear about 7 seals on the book, in the beginning of the book of Revelation, 7 seals on a book that are opened, you're the book. We are all. You're the book, and those 7 seals are your 7 chakras. So when you read in Revelation that this seal was opened and all these terrible things happened, another seal was opened and all these terrible things happened, what you're hearing is that when your centers are opened, toxic stuff comes out so that it can get cleaned. Bottom line is, you don't like it, don't have toxic stuff in your chakras, Don't have toxic stuff in your glands, in your chakras, and in your consciousness. If you have toxic stuff in your consciousness, it's going to get in the chakras. If it's in the chakras, it's going to get in the glands. If it's in the glands, it's going to affect everything. So now people's digestion seems to be off. I mean, this has been coming for a while when people started manufacturing new illnesses that all of a sudden everybody had, stomach digestive issues. And here's what they do in medical science and in the world. They go, a lot of people are struggling with indigestion or upset stomach. Oh, I think I know what it is. It's because they have too much this, too little that, and now we're going to call it, Michael's disease, because Michael came up with an idea. All that guy did was come up with what he theorizes is a remotely close idea of what it could be. Then he finds often some sort of remedy that makes them not feel that symptom, and they go, there we go, now we have a name of a new disease. Problem is, oh my God. Then there's another one because that one didn't cover it. Look at the number of diseases just around stomach issues, is indigestion and other stomach issues. Oh my God, there's the number of them, it just doesn't end. And somebody goes, oh, I thought it was this and it was still not going away. Somebody finally told me what I really have. And it's just, there's everything from food allergies to whatever, Hashimoto's and, highs and lows, whatever other diseases. So what's happening is, you could say there's plagues coming. So what some of the people are experiencing in the stomach is a mild version of a plague. It's a good name for it because this damn thing seems to plague me, doesn't it? But what you're experiencing is a global disease. Sorry to say, it's a global disease. When they do tell you they think they know what you have and they're going to give you the remedy, they're just doing best guess, and that's great. I'm glad they gave you something that makes you feel a little less sick, upset stomach or whatever it happens to be. But it doesn't cure it. It's just a way to manage it for now. So, hang in there. Hang in there and recognize this is about healing the soul, not the body. Some of you already know we're doing a Healing the Heart and Soul course, online course for the next few weeks. Any of you are welcome to sign up for that, but we have an online course coming in. When I planned that course, when I said, let's do the Healing the Heart and Soul online course, I actually was not aware of why I was getting that. Sometimes I'm aware and sometimes not of why things are happening. I'm just grateful that I get the guidance at all. But I'm not always completely aware of why. I just kind of go, okay, well, it's going to be right somehow. So I do it. Next thing I know, we just finished healing issues about relationships and intimacy and sexuality. And then that kind of made this even more of a poignant kind of a timing to do Healing the Heart and Soul. Then Saturn goes retrograde. Then all this other stuff is happening on the planet. I'm going, oh my God, it's amazing. Again, why it's best to surrender to the plan God already has in store, because it knows all these layers before we could figure them out. So like I said, it's not easy to always talk about these things. And what I choose to do is, as a light worker, am I making a difference? How can I help? Some people think you shift into higher dimensions, you're not even going to have any issues. That's not true at all. What can happen is that when you go from one level of 3D body, 3.2 to 3.3, you just have other levels of issues, deeper levels, because you're going deeper. As you go higher, you go deeper into consciousness. So, that's kind of how this works. We're rising to higher dimensions, and each of those layers might be less dense in its manifestation, less physical per se, but you won't always know that because it'll seem physical, but the causes are so spiritual you can't figure out what's happening. So for example, if somebody says, oh look, I have a certain ailment, let's say 300 years ago, I have a certain ailment, it's called this, and it's right there on the tip of my finger, it's called this, and we're going to put something on it and it's fixed. When we were denser, we would name things more densely and fix them with dense substances that we thought fixed them. Now it's going to get more and more to the point where we go, oh, look, I have that thing there. I'll just put that on it. Well, wait, it didn't fix it. It didn't fix it. It did, and then that's going to break in one day. It's going to break into something, or break out into something known as another plague on this planet, in the really dense kind of sense, because it's a humility that we need. Another Saturn retrograde, medically speaking, in terms of health. Things that people cannot fix or solve. And that's what's happening behind this. We're all going through a phase where we're supposed to recognize things we tried to ignore, which is not a bad thing. It's okay, fine, as long as you look at them now. Things we tried to ignore, pieces of things we might have thought we worked on, just remnants of things, little fragments here and there of things we worked on. We dismantled some issues in the past, feel much better, little pieces of it left. We've got to be willing to watch that, man, because any one of those we leave while we're in this Saturn retrograde, any pieces we leave without looking at them and doing our best to heal them, including addictions and causes to addictions, including the craziness of I've got an ailment that nobody can figure out what it is. It is crazy, but it isn't just the ailment that you're working on. It's also feeling insane, like you don't know what you're going to do with this. This is crazy. Why can't anybody figure it out? That hopelessness, that desire to fix it and not be able to fix it is one of the issues you're supposed to be working on. And that's why it feels surreal. That's why there's moments when I'm going, this is just crazy, because I'm trying to express something and it's like here I am, like I'm in a fourth dimension or fifth dimension trying to talk and nobody can hear me. And in a way, it's almost like a person, like a sci-fi movie where somebody says they were in a coma. They were always trying to talk to somebody, but the people around them, but they couldn't hear them. Or they had a disease that caused them to look that way, like they were in a coma and couldn't communicate. It's terrifying. It's frightening. It's all that. But for me, one of the perks of being in that state of going, wow, what is this? Seeing it coming and then seeing it hit and watching the people around just go nuts around this. Meetings and conversations and whatever else, teachings, whatever, seeing such a depth that people are in that they can't even for themselves see it. You're trying to explain it as a counselor, as a psychic or anything, and they may not be getting it as much as you're trying to convey it because they have their own issues and resistances or whatever else. So feeling like maybe you're parenting going, I just don't know how to get this across to my child or to their teacher or to somebody. There's a lot of this craziness going on. And all I can say to you, there's things to do and not do. One, don't take it personally. Oh, that's, easy, right? Don't take it personally. I would say one thing to do is communicate. Even though communication is a bit off, I'm asking you to do one of the things that, is hardest to do. What not to do, though, don't take it personally. Don't panic. Don't be too rash. you've got this ailment and, oh my God, this thing Michael's talking about, it's a new age virus of consciousness. Don't make an official name to it and start passing it around, because it might go viral, and that might not be a good thing, But don't put too much, don't let it have too much control over you. Don't let it panic you too much. It's a really strange state. So it's hard to describe what to do and not do, because it's so important to hold your center, but the whole challenge is the very fact of your being pulled off center. So it's hard to describe the do's and don'ts, but definitely don't buy into it. Don't take it too personally. And then look at it from a higher dimension. Look at it as, wait a second, there's more to this. What is this really about? Look at the deeper messages, the deeper learnings. Find what you're supposed to be healing and letting go of. And like I said, these are the do's, try to communicate, but recognize if you can't, okay, what if I were reading a story about a hero or heroine going into the underworld? What would I hope that they would accomplish in there? Hades, and all that. What would I hope would happen in the story? Oh, they're probably going to have to go through some tests. They're probably going to be challenged by Hades in some way, Satan in some way. I would want them to succeed. I would want them to come out a hero. I would want them to be able to emerge victorious in whatever the battle was. That's what I would say to you. Watch yourself and see if this is a test, if it is a mythology kind of a story, and it is a test. What can I do to succeed in my own version of the story? And I'm going to add this. Even with that in mind, it's still challenging because, again and again, I'm saying, one of the whole points to this is not feeling like you're succeeding. So it's not as easy to switch it over to, okay, I'm going to feel like I'm succeeding, because it's more like you're shifting into, and how do I feel about being in a no-win situation? How do I feel about not being able to communicate this or that to someone that I want to communicate it to? How do I feel about having an issue come up that I definitely thought I was done with? An issue that I was hoping I would never have to face again, and here it is again. Where the Christians would say that darn Satan, someone else would say that darn Saturn, and someone else would say, wow, very cool. This is really cool. But I think the ones that say this is really cool are the weirdest of us, but that's probably an okay thing, so don't take it as a criticism. So as I'm coming to a close, I myself will just keep, doing what I can as a light worker. And I do believe this is connected to our questions early on from this one gal. It is connected to the world. It is connected to the prophecies of Revelation. It is connected to the book, the seals on the book being opened, stuff coming out, and we're now working on the Christ Center collectively. That doesn't mean everybody's aware of it. That doesn't mean everybody's really at that level of consciousness, but that's still being worked in them to some level, So we're all moving to the Christ Center, and that's really great news. But as you can see, look, the world around you, it doesn't feel very Christy yet, does it? So what are you doing to be a light worker? What are you doing to raise the bar on your own numbers? Don't wait for ships to come and pick you up and take you to higher dimensions. You need to look at whether you're acting higher dimensionally now. Are you or are you not? Being more loving, forgiving? Are you being a light worker? Are you really anchoring things? And I really love having you guys, join in these pages that we have. I appreciate that generally you guys are respectful. I know there's always one in every 1,000 of you that watch that decides to say hateful things, and all that. It's a shame because, you're dealing with a denser reality, and it's a more hateful one back in the fear-based 3.1, 3.0, and all that. Well, when transition comes, people that could ascend and just actually turn to light, it wouldn't be the types of people that are hateful like that, or gossipy and hurtful. Especially when you're supposed to be a friend to other people and you backstab them, or people are backstabbing you. Those wouldn't be the best of the people, and that behavior is not going to ascend anytime soon to those higher dimensions. So let's purge ourselves with Saturn's help. Let's purge ourselves of those lower behaviors and find a way to be and have a higher consciousness and come from that higher consciousness as best we can. That's one of the reasons I do the things I do. I mean, I could do like most people and say, I think I'm going to retire in a few years or whatever. I don't have any retirement per se set up, but if I could retire, let's say when I reach 65, that's not my thing. I believe I'll be doing this until I die. And whether that's tomorrow or 20 years from now or whatever, I'm going to do this till I die, because this is the only reason we're supposed to be here anyway, is to be light to God, the light of God to others, and, be that presence. So blessings, many, many blessings to you all. And thanks for sharing. We'll see you. Bye-bye.